Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. A postmortem of my Blitz game number 403. My opponent kicked off with d4. And I play knight f6, hoping to get a Nimzo-Indian, and he allows it. He plays c4, I play e6, and he brings his knight out to c3. The most popular way of avoiding the Nimzo is to play knight f3, which you see is actually the top choice these days. I don't like to allow the Nimzo. It's a pretty good opening for black, very solid, and black can equalize in a lot of lines and get some interesting counterplay, so good way to play. e3 you can see is the top choice, although today the most popular move at the top level seems to be queen c2, the classical variation, but e3, the Rubinstein variation, also the way I play it. And here black can castle or play c5 or even b6 and going right away for the fianchetto, but I like this c5 move, putting some pressure on the center right away, trying to keep the e-pawn tied up. And then my opponent plays the move a3, a bit rare in this position. I think this could be called a delayed Samish. The Samish proper is in this position, yeah, to play a3 right here. And it is considered a bit of a risky opening for white. He suffers some pawn damage, this Samish line. And then I can continue to put the pressure on the center. I could also just castle too, but this is fine. Bishop d3, the normal way of developing, and now I castle. And then right here he continues with e4, which is one of the ideas of the Samish, is to try and get this move e4 in and build up a big center, sometimes even sacrificing a pawn. It looks like it's not particularly good, and I could go ahead and grab the pawn right here. I didn't do that, but cd, knight takes d4. Yeah, I could just win a pawn right there, although e5. E5 makes this position a bit uncomfortable, apparently. The knight has to run back to e8. So I did not think about that during the game. That's interesting. I play this pawn here to kind of prevent e3 to e4. He plays it anyway, and then you don't take advantage of the opportunity which you already have to take there. I should have at least thought about it. So c takes. Let's take a look at that again. And c takes back. It's best not to continue with taking, but to play d5, I guess. Okay, well, so you get this kind of interesting double-edged position. It is a sacrifice, but it looks like white has compensation. Interesting. Okay, so I did not think about that during the game. I just played d6 to shore up the pawn, and because he's also threatening to take here in some lines or push on with d5, and I want to be able to exchange the pawn off if it shows up on d5. So he goes knight f3. I push on my pawn with e5 since he hasn't done anything with his pawns. I try to set up this solid formation in the center, and this, I think, maybe the Hübner variation. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's just what I've heard from listening to Chess Explained. He plays similar systems with white. So h6, kicking the bishop, and b6, preparing my bishop to come out to this diagonal if he doesn't ever push on with d5. It's not clear where this bishop goes. If he's going to play d5 now, it would lock up the center, and I would probably bring the bishop all the way out to a6 rather than to b7, but it's still got a couple of choices. It could go to either of those squares. Okay, he castled here, and I play for bishop a6, targeting this c-pawn here, which is sometimes a bit weakly defended. He goes knight e1. I was really expecting the knight to come back to d2. Pushing on with d5 is recommended here. Okay, so he went knight e1, and I went knight a5, going after the pawn. I could have, once again, I could have taken in the center there, leading to complications and possibly winning a pawn. But he holds on. Okay, so f4 is the way to play this. That's how white can maintain this aggressive stance and put more pressure on my center. So sacrificing this pawn on c4, but going after the destruction of my center with the move f4. It looks like that's the way to play it. Okay, he played the move queen e2, just defending the pawn. And now this allows a tactic which actually spotted. So at this point I decided to take. He takes back. And then I have the move knight to b3, which is a fork. It hits his rook in the corner, and it hits the pawn. So I'm picking up a pawn under pretty favorable circumstances. He plays the best move here. He d-takes. I thought, well, maybe this isn't going to amount to so much. I have to take back. But I thought, well, this is going to be a great square for the knight anyway, so I'm still feeling pretty good about the position. And now he should really play rook to d1 and start putting some pressure against my queen here. I could retreat the knight after rook d1. It's interesting. Here, let's put this on the board. It's a short game, so we can look at some of these variations. If he had played here, which would have been the best move, I would have probably gone to d4. It's interesting that the chess engine slightly prefers knight to c5. I guess because I'm putting pressure on the bishop there. I do not really see the advantage of knight c5. Here, let's play it. See if there's any idea in mind here. Then f4, and then knight takes d3. Yeah, so the idea is just to get rid of that bishop, which looks like a bad bishop, but it is defending white's center. It's holding on to these key pawns. So interesting way to play. Yeah, as I said, I probably would have gone to d4. But he didn't play rook d1. Instead, he played knight f3, getting the knight back into action and counterattacking my pawn. And I don't know what he was thinking, if he just didn't notice this was hanging here. But after I took, he should probably take back right away and just play on down the exchange. It's not game over because it'll take me a while to get my rooks in the game, and he can try and complicate things, so it's reasonable to play on here. But taking the pawn is probably not the best way to play on. Now I can bring my knight out, get back to b3, and it's going to get to safety on him, a whole rook up, which is going to be difficult for white to overcome. The engine thinks queen d6. hitting the loose knight here is an even more precise way to play. I don't have to defend my knight if I can take his knight. Queen d6, bishop g3, defending the knight, and then knight to b3. Okay, I just played knight to b3 right away, and then he went queen f3, I suppose, with some ideas of trying to get an attack on the f file here. But this is not working. I was going to play knight to d4 next, although probably, as I looked at it afterwards, probably the move he was afraid of. He just resigned at this point. Probably the move he was afraid of was not knight to d4, but knight to d2, forking the queen and the rook, which the engine points out is the best move. But even knight d4 is really a winning advantage for black here. So my opponent resigned, not too soon, but interesting play, particularly in the opening. So the Nimzo-Indian is definitely a defense that can be recommended. It's a solid defense and gives you some counter chances, as you see here. Okay, leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.